All right, guys. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go over just a couple of examples of some of the issues that have come up so far. And the best way to do this, I thought, would be to show you some models, discuss the models real quick, let you take a look at them. They're both, all three sets of examples are actually loaded onto the Schoology course site. So if you wanted to take a look at some of the examples and see how they were graded, the way it's set up is that there'll be a scoring guideline, the student samples, and the scoring commentary. Don't worry about the scoring guideline because that's changed over time. That same scoring guideline is not used anymore. So we have a different one for this exam. So just look at the student examples and look at the commentary, and that can help you to decide how your paper matches up. All right? So just going back down to this paper. We already looked at this paper, and one of the concerns that people have had is, how do I tie the stimulus to my question? And it takes some work. It really does. You got to think about what each piece of the stimulus is about. And for the most part right now, we have a lot of people using the first one. And that is, have you renounced pleasure? And the other one that people have used is the second one, on virtue and happiness. So again, if you have some concerns about those stimulus materials, we can have a discussion about it again, or you can talk to your classmates and see what they're doing. As soon as people start really getting that introduction kind of finalized and figured out, I'll start sharing those examples with you, because people seem to be having the hardest time with that. All right, so this was a paper on virtual reality. I know we looked at this in class, but this was a long time ago, so we're going to just go through it real quick again. So a survey conducted by Pew Research Center in 2016 found that only 22% of Americans trust the information communicated by professional news outlets. Due to a desire for more accurate relay of information from the journalist to the audience, virtual reality, or referred to as VR, has begun to emerge as a new form of journalism. So that's the kind of introductory statement. So you know what this student is writing about, right? And it fit nicely into what the stimulus were that year. There was a stimulus piece from Arthur Schlesinger, who was a historian, and there was a stimulus piece about virtual reality. So if you go to this second page here, all right, it's 2 of 11 pages from the student's paper. This was about virtual reality. So when discussing the nature of virtual reality, Gershon Dublin and Joseph Paradiso stated that virtual reality allows one to be somewhere in real time. Therefore, virtual reality allows the viewer to take on the role of an indirect eyewitness to the event being documented. When addressing different concerns about accuracy that arise depending on how information is documented and how it is accessed, by whom Arthur Schlesinger stated that eyewitness documented history proves to be more accurate than alternative methods. As such, allowing the viewer to take on such a role provides for more accurate relay of information from the producer to the viewer by giving the viewer a relatively more comprehensive understanding of the event rather than one limited by the journalist's possibly biased viewpoint. Therefore, by being an indirect eyewitness, the viewer would be able to better understand and experience the event in its totality rather than be restricted by the journalist's point of view. So, first of all, it's a pretty cool topic, right? He's talking about, this, you're like a indirect eyewitness to events happening through virtual reality. All right, so let's take a look at what goes on here. So here, what he's doing, or the student is doing here, is talking about the claims that were made by these two authors, and those two authors are part of the stimulus packet for that year. And he uses a quote from it. And then he or she, the student here, discusses the idea of how this is connected to his own or her topic, right? And they're explaining how it's connected. Therefore, virtual reality allows the viewer to take the role of an indirect eyewitness in an event being documented. So they took a quote from the stimulus and they tied it directly to their ideas in their paper. And then to tie it even further together, the student brings up the Schlesinger article. And in it, it's stated that eyewitness documented history proves to be more accurate than alternative methods. So what the student is doing is connecting this idea of using virtual reality with eyewitness accounts to create virtual journalism. All right, so this section right here That is enough to connect two sources to a theme. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about with respect to this paper is the conclusion, because we've had a few students say, hey, how do I do my conclusion? So if you would, just take a look at this conclusion from these sets of papers here. This is 2018, okay? So this is the conclusion for that student's paper. And what the student did is discusses the solutions to the problems that he's already addressed in the IWA with respect to virtual journalism. And he talks about creating a rating system. And he also presents here the limitations to that and the implications. So that's how you could tie it all up at the end. All right, pretty much like we did with the IRRs. One last thing I just wanted to talk about that hasn't really come up yet, but as you can see, this is a very well done works cited page, and you are going to access your works cited page from your Noodle tools. The importance of it, again, is this student used a bunch of real credible and reliable sources, right? Academic sources. You see here the Journal of Applied Developmental Psychology, the Archives of Pediatric Adolescents, Virginia Law Review. You see a bunch of those different kinds of sources. That's what they're going to do. They're going to open your paper, they're going to go to the citations, and they're going to make sure that the citations have some credible, reliable academic sourcing. So make sure that they're in there. We've talked about that numerous times. And make sure you're working on a good Noodle Tools account, so it makes it a lot easier to attach your bibliography to it at the end. The last thing I want to do is just go over the template again. All right, the introduction is noted. We talked about that a few times already. Just I wanted to talk about these body paragraphs, all right? Especially when you start going into your claims, your argumentative claims. So when you do that, I think it's a good idea to have subtitles, whatever you want them to be. Make sure they're there because it shows some sort of organizational structure to it. Remember, you have to address different perspectives throughout the paper. You don't have to do subtitles by perspectives if you don't want to do it that way. But make sure you're not, if you're doing homework as a topic, that you're not only talking about the student perspective, right? You're bringing in parents, you're bringing in teachers, you're bringing in administrators. You have to use, multiple perspectives throughout your paper. Again, you don't have to label the body paragraphs by perspective, but you have to use perspectives throughout the paper. The body paragraph subtitles can be perspectives or claims or something else that you want to put in there. I think it's a good idea to use. You do not have to do it, but it shows some organizational structure to your paper. All right, so then you're going to make a claim with your affirmative claim. You're going to provide evidence and reasoning. Sometimes the reasoning will come before the evidence. Explain how your evidence supports your claim, and then try, if you can, to make a connection between the claim and the counter-argument. When you go here to the next body paragraph in your affirmative claim, you see here connection between the claim and the previous claim or the counter-argument. Always talking between paragraphs, all right? Always having a conversation. Either you're having a conversation between this paragraph and here, or you're having a conversation between this paragraph and that one. Conversations between ideas, between perspectives. All right? If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll talk to you later in the week.